Welcome back to FAWKES News. Very sad news update today. It's about Peanut the Squirrel, but I want to cover something that I think a lot of people are missing in the Peanut the Squirrel case. If you're living under a rock, I just threw my pen on accident. If you're living under a rock, Peanut the Squirrel was a rescue squirrel. He was rescued by these folks in upstate New York that own a massive horse rescue and other animal rescue sanctuary. It's a nonprofit, but the documentation of Peanuts kind of bringing back to life has been well documented. It's all over TikTok. So cresting 3 million followers across social media platforms. But Peanut's mom was ran over by a car, and then as a baby, Peanut was rescued. And when it got of age, it was released into the wild, into this man's backyard, into their animal sanctuary with all their horses. The squirrel was attacked by something. It came back to the porch with the mangled tail. And so they realized, hey, this squirrel's not going to make it on its own. And so they brought it into the house. They fixed the tail. Squirrel becomes best friends with the cat, and the rest is history. And they explained the whole process of why they have this squirrel. Now, listen, is it illegal to have a squirrel? It is. But let's talk about why it's illegal to have a squirrel, because I think that's what everybody's mad about here. Everybody's starting to open their eyes to, why is the government telling me what kind of pet I can and can't own? And is it really reasonable for the government to come out with 10 agents and conduct a 5.5-hour search warrant where they're going to dismantle the property and ransack the property, which is not necessarily necessary, to recover a squirrel and an injured raccoon? And I want to talk about it from a law enforcement perspective. And I've been on many calls with animal control, from anything from fighting dogs to fighting chickens. I've been on a lot of calls, or just to dogs that have been left out on a chain that's too big, or it's too cold outside, yada, yada, yada. So I have a little bit of a background and some experience and some insight that nobody else is talking about that I think is really important. Here's the number one thing that I think we should take away from this, other than being mad at the government for being unreasonable, and we're going to get to that. But before we get into that, let's raise a little bit of awareness here. Why don't we have a vaccine, a rabies vaccine for squirrels? We have one for foxes. I'll give you one better. We have one for ferrets. You can own it. How different is it? Now, listen, I'm not a scientist, but doesn't seem all that different, a ferret from a squirrel. So if we can have an FDA approved vaccine for a squirrel, for a ferret, why cannot we have one for a squirrel? Now, I've been told, I talked to an animal control agent before I went on this show, and she said that there is a vaccine for rabies for all sorts of animals. The FDA hasn't approved them. Maybe that's the bigger question. Why won't the FDA approve a rabies vaccine for a squirrel? So if you did come in contact with a squirrel like that, it could be vaccinated. Also, we can put a man on the moon, but we can't figure out if an animal has rabies or not until it's dead. We've got no other methods of testing. Let me do another one. Why is it in 2024 we're sending environmental agents to seize a squirrel and a raccoon without the proper PPE to get the job done effectively without being bit or scratched by said squirrel? Maybe the bigger issue is, do we have a problem with funding in animal control? Is there a problem in research and development? I mean, if the only reason that you can't own a squirrel is because of a rabies vaccination, by the way, here's a fun stat for you. 73, I want to get the numbers right. In 2023, 73 people died in the United States from a dog. 57 of the 73 were killed by pit bulls. Do you know how many people have died in the last 10 years from squirrels? Well, I couldn't find the number because it's 0. You cannot find records of a person dying by a squirrel attack going back 10 years. So how many encounters do we have with squirrels on a daily basis? I don't know. I see squirrels all the time. My kids, I don't want to say too much on the internet, but My kids love making traps, and they're very good at making traps. And my kids like to eat squirrels a lot. We've dealt with squirrels a lot. My kids have been scratched by squirrels. Listen, the likelihood of a squirrel giving you rabies is like, Josh, fact check me really fast, my producer. Can you find me records of a rabies transmission from a squirrel in the
That's what I was
last
trying
10
to pull
years?
up to see if it's actually, if I could find any records off it. And the CDC does not keep records for this at
Because
all.
there's so few.
Because 80%, 86% of rodent transmitted rabies cases reported to the CDC over a 10-year period ending in 1999. The agency says that they don't handle the records because just so few of them.
Right. So my point exactly. And so I think the bigger question here is not why do we hate the government so much, but why does the government not why isn't the FDA approving shots? Why isn't there other ways that we listen? If you really love, and I like how this is spun into a far right wing extremist thing, because remember, I've always told you the right seems to be like the modern day right, or the modern day Trump guy seems to be more of like a 90s leftist than anything else, because we actually do care about animals and creatures and conservation. So let me read you the definition from FEMA. Environmental conservation, because that's who that the Department of Environmental Conservation is who did the seizure, this 10-man federal agent raid of a animal sanctuary for 5.5 hours, where they went through every nook and cranny. And we'll read you some articles here and you can catch up on it. But they ransacked this guy's house. I mean, and at least I want to talk about it from a law enforcement perspective. I think a lot of these things are unnecessary, but this is who conducted this raid. And I'm not being hyperbolic. I mean, once you come in with 10 agents and you sit the person down outside and they're not allowed to go back inside to use the bathroom, and you ransack the house and you break things, physically tear things apart, that is a raid at that point. Environmental and historic preservation law and policy are designed to ensure that the federal government consider the effects of their actions on natural and cultural resources. Pay attention. Environmental conservation is the protection. Let me read it again. Environmental conservation is the protection, preservation, management, or restoration of natural environments and the ecological communities that inhabit them. So how is it that a man who has documented very well that he has rescued a squirrel, that he has actually talked about on social media, you should not own a squirrel, and that it is mean to own a squirrel. However, in certain circumstances, just like the left likes to fight that in certain circumstances, maybe a woman might have to kill a baby, maybe to save her life, or maybe because there was some kind of incest or something like that. There's always an argument to be had. But all of a sudden in this case, and I don't know how it became a right versus left thing, but all of a sudden in this case, the man should have just known, and there is no gray area. He should not have had a squirrel. But who thought it was reasonable? Then, if you're really trying to do management and preservation, preserving these things and protecting these things, then this man is doing FEMA's fucking job by protecting this said squirrel. And it's pretty obvious that he's doing that. And I think there's 1,000 different ways that you could have went about going and seizing a squirrel without having to, one, ransack the man's house and then kill the said squirrel, which is why we have such distrust in the government to begin with, because you're not using common sense, because there isn't anything reasonable what's going on. You knew this wasn't reasonable. And here's my other question, Josh, is not one cop there said, what am I getting into? What? Listen, as a police officer, if you called me and said, this guy, animal control calls, she's like, Tansy, I need your help. Got you, girl. What you need? I don't know why. Animal control is usually a girl. What you need? Oh, I've got this guy's got 15 raccoons hidden on his property, living up underneath his trailer. In this case, it's a nice home, right? In my story, it's a trailer. Okay, great. He can't have them. Okay, sure. Let's go talk to him. Let's tell him he can't have them. And we have a nice conversation. Hey, man. Somebody says you got like 15 raccoons living under your house? No, I don't have 15 raccoons living under my house. Okay, listen. I don't want to go down this road with you, but what I'm telling you is let me read you the law as it's written. I didn't write the law. I don't agree with the law, but let me read you the law as written. So, with all that being said, if you have raccoons under your house and we have to come back and get the raccoons, you're not going to like me very much. So I'm going to come back tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat place. And I'm going to ask you if there's any squirrels underneath your porch. And then I'm going to ask you to look under your porch. And if you say no tomorrow, then I'm going to come back with a warrant. And then we're really going to have a bad day. So I really, if you love these raccoons, you got to figure they can't be under your house tomorrow at noon. Because that's how little I give a fuck about raccoons being under somebody's house. I don't care if he moves those raccoons to his bathtub or his bathroom. I'm not risking my life or making a terrorist out of somebody or giving somebody a reason to want to come and kill my family because I fucked with his 15 babies. You know what I'm saying, Josh? Does that make sense? You go fuck with the wrong guy's raccoons, you're gambling that this motherfucker doesn't come and kill your whole family.
Not only that, we talk about, see, this happened in New York. So this is a case. This is an incident. This is a situation that comes out of New York. And then this is what's being highlighted at it. Not the immigration, not the problems with immigration out of New York, not the problems with the homelessness, not the fact that a 5-year-old was just raped last week by an immigrant in New York. That's not the problems that the New York.
Can we rape test immigrants?
No, we have to kill them first, unless they're a squirrel. So on average, from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, a conservation officer in New York, on average, is $42.50 an hour. If they had 10 agents there and they were there for 4 hours, that's $1,700 of your tax money that went to go raid somebody's house, kidnap 2 animals, and then kill them. Not only that, in the process of this, one of the reasons that they said that they were euthanized is it was bitten while they were doing this process. So just for we clarify this, as a police officer, we can't create the exigent circumstances, Sonia Massey with the bottle or the hot water. We can't create the circumstance and then shoot someone in the fucking face over it and then get off the hook. You can't create exigent and then discharge your firearm. So you can't create, oh, I want to test to see if this has rabies because it bit me because I stuck my hand in there. Well, no, idiot, don't stick your hand in there. So when we have,
I mean, Josh, I mean, I'm not to interrupt you, but I'm leaving for Western North Carolina here shortly. We're shooting a documentary on Helene and the greatest domestic rescue effort that's ever taken place on American soil. And there's more to come on that. But by the way, the government didn't have a really big hand to play in that. And so this documentary is going to be awesome. And I'm excited about doing that. But I was on search and rescue. And then I was on search and recovery. And then I was on a humanitarian aid, all in Western North Carolina over the span of 3 weeks. Right now I'm going back. But in my time there, I showed up with a bump helmet in my bag. Just a little plastic skateboard helmet just in case I've got to crawl under some rubble. You never know. Actually had to wear my bump helmet because we were cutting down big giant trees and limbs. Thought it'd be safe to protect my noodle while cutting down trees, right? I brought a life jacket. There's a lot of water. We're going to be in and out of kayaks and whitewater rafts. Did a body recovery, had to use a big giant raft, had to go down some rapids. Glad I had my life jacket because I'm not a mountain man and we're kayaker. I have a hatchet, brought a knife, multiple flashlights, some propane gas. Not one sleeping bag, but 2. One which I kept in a trash bag. Just my point is that I was a Boy Scout, essentially. I came prepared. 2 is 1, 1 is none. Doesn't take a rocket mathematician to decide if I'm going to go and seize a squirrel or a raccoon that I shouldn't have some, like, don't they have those like bald eagle gloves? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, when the guy comes to your school and he's got the big giant leather glove that the hawks land on and shit, like you couldn't put one of those on before you went and messed with a squirrel or a raccoon.
Well, not only that, why did you need to send 10 kitted out agents to go pick up a squirrel? This
And
person
they didn't have any gloves to not get bit.
They've got no criminal history, none whatsoever. You couldn't have just knocked on the door and said, hey, this is what's up. But you had to send agents and raid their house for hours.
Yeah. And on that point, I waited 3 days to do this only because I was like, I bet you this is some white trash hillbilly Bob that's got raccoons under his house and malnourished horses under the guise of a nonprofit. But he's probably just some lazy piece of shit because we run into those very often on these calls. So I gave it 3 days. This could not have happened to a nicer couple, a nicer family. These people seem salt of the earth. They seem like they got their shit together. Their shit looks clean. Their stuff, the horses look healthy. Not a lot of complaints come from the neighborhood. It was an anonymous internet complaint, right? You got 3 million followers. Somebody's going to complain. Some little homeowners association Karen, some city folk nutball liberal who does not care about nature, who doesn't care about real conservation, is probably one who bitched and complained about this.
Well, how do you get a warrant from a complaint? You don't. You have to get evidence to submit to a judge to get a judge to write a warrant to enter someone's house.
They've got the TikTok videos. I mean, that's plenty of evidence.
Oh yeah, TikTok videos of them with this squirrel so there's an auto racing. They do this thing where this was filmed in Mexico, but really it's down the street, in between those two buildings that, everyone street races at night. They'll do that to get out of that, but that's part of an investigation. You don't just go from, hey, my neighbor might have a squirrel to here's 10 agents. Let's euthanize this.
I bet you they did an investigation. You know what I mean? Because they would have to. You would have to know that the squirrel was on the property. You know what I mean? Like they saw the Instagrams, they saw the TikTok, and it was enough that reasonably. If they're like, here's a video of him standing in front of his front door on his front porch with the squirrel. Here's a picture of his front door. It matches. You know what I mean? Like that's enough for a judge.
Yep. So what we're logically saying is, instead of making contact with someone who has no criminal history, let's kid out 10 people and send them to the front door.
And there you go. That's the reasonableness part of this. Like what's reasonable would be you send somebody over and educate and say, listen, let me educate you on the way the law works. And then and here is the paperwork available for you to actually get this squirrel to be a educational purpose animal. Like here is the criteria. And then here, like, this is like, there are ways that you could use common sense to work around this rather than sending 10 kitted out dudes to do a raid on a house like this to make it national news and then try to make it a political thing. Also, you wouldn't need to do any of this bullshit if the FDA would just start to approve a rabies vaccine for squirrels, and you could own a pet squirrel. What's the difference in owning a pet squirrel versus a pet ferret?
Well, here's the other thing. We have watched we've shared them on social media of these ATF agents going to people's houses because they have bump stocks, or they have bought a silencer, or they bought weapons, things that actually are built to kill people. That's a whole thing there. And we're just going to send 2 random pencil pushers to go check on a silencer, but we'll send 10 kitted out agents to go pick up a squirrel. That's the issue. There's the getting the vaccine approved, and then the massive overreach. It's a squirrel,
and the lack of training and the lack of funding, right? So if you're gonna how did somebody get bit? And that's why this thing is euthanized. Bring up this article really quick. Let me read it for you. I like to bring receipts. Flash this article really quick. After 7 years, Peanut is taken away and then put down. This is coming from the New York Times. If you scroll down really quick, go ahead and read the highlighted portion for me, Josh.
Yeah, in a statement Friday, the New York State Department of Environmental and Conservation, that's a huge long name for a department, said that the squirrel was euthanized to test for rabies after it bit someone, quote, involved with the investigation, end quote. The raccoon was also euthanized to test for rabies, the department said. So
they wanted to euthanize these. This is why the internet's so mad right now. It's because it is apparent that somebody got a bug up their ass. Somebody felt threatened. Their authority was threatened, and we're going to put an end to these things. Like there's always that movie, right? Boss Hog. You know what I mean? Where they just want to assert their authority. Except this happened in New York, so I don't know how to do that with a New York accident. But they wanted these squirrels dead. You don't just accidentally get bitten by a squirrel in this incident, just like Jeffrey Epstein's camera didn't just accidentally go out, or at the DNC pipe bomb camera accidentally didn't focus on where it was supposed to be. And all these, like, you didn't accidentally have federal agents in the crowd during the JSAT. Like, you didn't accidentally, you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of, you didn't accidentally acid wash your whole fucking entire email server systems. It's so funny that whenever something that's like a Democrat left wing agenda that takes place. There's always some kind of like an accident that just we didn't foresee coming. But then when you have something like the Breonna Taylor case, which actually pretty much goes just the way any shit show combat situation would go, and there, and there was a reasonable amount of training in there. There was a reasonable amount of error in that, but the media tried to make it to be like some kind of wazoo blown up thing. Ooh. But the left, who actually does this, talk about gaslighting, who actually is the ones that always literally don't cross the I's and T's on purpose. They're the ones that accidentally get bit by this squirrel, and it's nonsense. They wanted to kill the squirrel. That's what we're all pissed about. Fuck you guys at the DEC, the Department of Environmental Conservation, you dicks. You wanted to kill that fucking squirrel, and you did. You didn't have to ransack the house. You did it anyway. You didn't have to kill the squirrel. You did it anyway, and now you are going to pay the meme gods. Let's get out of here, but before we do, show me some of these beautiful memes. Tread on tyranny. Bro, this guy, you could have just created a terrorist, by the way. Like, this dude, like, you fuck with somebody's pets. Sometimes you're fucking with their children, dude. I talk about this in my stand-up comedy all the time. Like, listen, I know you'd like to think your dog is your little baby. It's a little baby, and you love it so much. That's, you don't. You don't love it as much as if it was a real child. Like, if it was your real child, you would not put your real child in a crate, for example. You wouldn't put your real child on a leash. You wouldn't feed your real child off of the floor. I mean, it's a fucking, at the end of the day, pet's a pet. But some people do believe in their brains that these dogs are their babies. And if you fuck with my baby, I know what's going to happen to you. You can get blood eagled in my front yard. So, what happens when you got one of these folks that feel the same way that I do about my kids as they do their pets? Look at this meme. I love this one right here. You are sheltering a squirrel, are you not? Do it with the accent. Do you have a German accent?
Are you not sheltering enemy? I can't do it.
No, that was good. That was a lot better than I was.
Are you sheltering squirrels?
Yeah.
Are you not?
Are you not? Yeah.
Do you have the nuts underneath? Can they hear us? No.
Yeah. Yeah. That was from Inglourious Bastards. That was from that meme, for those of you just listening. Then we have the Tread on Tyranny, which is the bulldozer, the killdozer, all armed out, but the squirrel is at the helm of the killdozer. Love it. It's funny. Go to the next one. It's just like a
John Wick.
Oh, we have a John Wick, Keanu Reeves with a furry like squirrel tail. Yeah, they fucked with my squirrel. Oh, this could be a John Wick moment. This guy could have a John Wick moment. Listen, lots of updates coming out of Western North Carolina. I will not be back on Wednesday for a Wednesday political show. Josh, you're more than welcome to take it. I'm going to need help again, especially with political news, jumping on Fawkes here and doing some political news. Of course, we have the big debate. I mean, the big election. Oh, the big debate? No, it's the election. We have the election. Real quick, over under, the election's in 2 days. Who are you taking and why? If you had $500, if I gave you $500 cash right meow, and I said you had to bet this $500 on who's going to win, who would you put the money on?
At this point, the way that the writing's on the wall, how the Democrats are reacting, the stuff that's going out there, the interviews are going. Instead of sending Kamala Harris to Joe Rogan, they sent John Fetterman. Like, could you get a worse person? Yeah, you probably get Kamala Harris, but she went on Saturday Night Live last night. I think the writing's on the wall. They might just at this point be going, okay, let's just save our money for 4 years. We're gonna have to wait this next 4 years. It is what it is. We're just gonna throw a wrench in there. We're going to do what we did the last election. We're going to bring up Russiagate. We're going to drag. He's not going to get anything done the next 4 years. And then we're going to go, look, we told you he was bad. And even though we caused all these issues for him and wasn't able to get anything done, now we're going to come in here and be the savior of everything. So I think he does get elected.
Okay.
Because if he doesn't, I don't know where we are on Friday. I don't know what country we wake up to Friday morning. And that's a scary thing to think about. But that's honestly because the polls are skewed. We know that the polls are skewed. What you can go out, walk outside, walk down your neighborhood, see what street signs are out, see what bumper stickers are on the car. I've seen more Trump stickers, more than the last election. I've seen less and less Harris stuff. Anybody that I've gotten to like debates with Harris, I said, okay, so what's her policy? I'm not voting for Trump. I'm voting for RFK. I'm voting for Tulsi Gabbard. I'm voting for Make America Healthy Again. I'm voting for Elon Musk to get rid of all this government inefficiency. This guy's about to put a rocket on Mars. I think he knows a little bit of thing about efficiency. So I'm voting for all of those people. Trump just happens to be at the head of the ticket. And when I argue with someone, I said, what are you voting for? Well, he's not Trump.
Right.
Well,
I've never seen more people flipping in an election than I have in this
Yep.
one. Actually, last night at the premiere of Office Joe Show, which comes out this next weekend. Make sure you stream Office Joe Show. I'm in 3 of the episodes there. Really funny comedy. But she screenshotted her voting form and said, I voted for Trump. Don't tell anybody. And I was like, get the frick out of here. Look at you. And she's like, I had to. I just, I'm not a big Trump fan. I'm not a Trump guy, but Kamala's cray. And so, yeah. So anyway, that was really interesting. Okay. You give me $500. I still think there's no way. The reason why I think they sent John Fetterman is because I think they already know they've won and because they are going to cheat to win. I've said that from day one, that there's no way they allow Donald Trump to be the president. It's just not going to happen. I still stand by that. If you were to give me $500 today and bet it, I would bet it on Kamala Harris for 2 reasons. One, I really do think she is going to win because I think that they will not let Donald Trump win. And number 2, every time I bet on somebody or a sports team, that team loses and I lose the bet. So there you go. You want me to put my money in the poly market on Kamala Harris. From myself, Josh, here at FAWKES News, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Follow the audio podcast, the audio version of this on iTunes and Spotify, and give it a 5-star rating review so we can get this show trending on the charts. To get on the charts on either Spotify or iTunes, it takes an influx of 5-star ratings and written reviews. So if you would please go listen, leave a 5-star rating and review from myself, Josh, everybody here, maybe G.I. Joe. Like G.I. Joe said, maybe you didn't know about Peanut the Squirrel's assassination or his death sentence, his execution, but now you do know, and knowing is half the battle.